Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for Truth show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard, you don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart, yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to a Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff. It's a pleasure to be back with you again tonight. And we have a very special show for you. Why? Because our world is suffering. All of us are suffering from lack of knowing who to turn to. Who can you trust? Who's going to really give you the correct information? Who's just trying to sell you because they have some kind of pet project where they're not going to work anymore, and you and I are going to do all the work? I know it sounds familiar probably to a lot of you watching the show, but that's not called humanity. That's not called collaboration. And that's not called something that's going to work long term or resolve what we're complaining about. And as a doctor, I look for solutions. If you come to me with a disease, I find the cause and then I apply the cure, or I give you the antibiotic, or the difference in the nutrition. Well, in our world, we're suffering from a lack of humanity, a lack of integrity, a lack of honesty, a lack of brotherhood. And so tonight's show is going to be specially geared for that. We're very lucky tonight in Buddha. If you put his pictures up on the screen, I want to introduce our viewers to Marion Tiny Frampton, founder of TBS New Direction, who was born and raised in Harlem as the second oldest of 9 children. At the age of 10, his family relocated to the Bronx, to Mott Haven Projects, which opened his eyes to a new culture of people, to prejudice he hadn't known before, and to violence brewing on the streets. He joined the most dangerous street gang in the Bronx, the Black Spades, and at the age of 17, unfortunately, was shot on Easter Sunday. This opened his eyes to a brand new reality. Being in the Black Spades exposed the magnitude of prejudice in his neighborhood and led him to become president of his own chapter of the Black Spades. And as president, he got his group involved in TV shows and got him involved with political figures to speak and do something about the problems that he saw his community was facing in the streets in an effort to solve them, to handle them. Circumstances would have it that Tiny would go to prison 3 times, but arriving back to the Bronx, he left the street life forever, deciding on a new life, and started his own nonprofit, TBS New Direction, with a goal to stop youth from killing other youth and killing other people, and to be a vanguard leading neighborhoods and improving those neighborhoods to overall well-being and to the overall benefit of the communities that they serve and live in. Marion Frampton has dedicated his life to community and has improved the lives of countless people. He transformed his own life and is a pioneer and is a role model on what focusing can do for yourself. And he focuses his future on public safety, on good education, and hard work. He himself had gone back to school to train and subsequently established a security agency and his own nonprofit. In 2019, he was introduced to a special book called The Way to Happiness, written by humanitarian L. Ron Hubbard. This book is a common sense guide to living. Mr. Frampton dedicates his life to getting a positive message across to community leaders, to churches, political figures, lay public in the community, and to create a calm, prosperous environment. An engineer, if we can, let's bring him up live on the screen and bid a warm welcome to Marion Tiny Frampton, founder of TBS New Direction.
Thank you, Mr. Ben. Thank you for having me here today.
It's a pleasure.
Mine as well.
It's a great pleasure, you know, and I love having a humanitarian, a human being like you, because you're real life. Mm-hmm. And being real life, you know, I know that the viewers are going to get a lot of what you have to say. I wanted to ask you, because you've gone through so much, let's start at the beginning. How do you feel your early life shaped who you became later on?
Well, you know, my early life started, I was born in Harlem, 1956. I was raised by my mother. My mother really shaped my life. My mother shaped my life as a humanitarian, as a man, as a father. You understand? My mother took care of 9 of us, and she made me realize the real concept of a man becoming a man. I didn't have a father figure in my life. I had a stepfather, you know, and he was there off and on. But my mother was our mother and our father. And she shaped me. And she shaped me to the point to where she taught me how to cook, how to clean, how to take care of myself and do this. She showed me the reality of how a man treated a woman and how a man should be treated by a woman. So my early stages of life really comes from my mother, you know, on basically a lot of the techniques and training of who I am today. So I give all the kudos and props to my mother of a woman who never went to school. Well, she went to school. She went to the 11th grade. She didn't graduate, but you know, she wasn't a real educated person, but she knew how to take care of family. In those days, a lot of our mothers and fathers or mothers wasn't educated to an extent. A lot of them went on now, don't get me wrong, but my mother was one of those that wasn't, you understand, school bound, but she knew how to take care of family, and she took care of all 9 of us, and she raised us. And I'm the only one out of my 9 siblings, you understand, there was a chaos to her that made her hair rise on her head, because all the rest of my brothers and sisters, you understand, are public servants. You understand, even today, I got lawyers in my families, I got teachers in my families, I got Homeland Securities, all my sisters. You understand, there's 3 of us that's passed away, there's 6 of us alive now today, and we're all over the age of 50. And like I said, my mother taught us, and when she passed away, I took care of my brothers and sisters. We didn't have to split up. So my early education came from my mother, you know, as learning how to take care of family.
Well, a beautiful beginning. What was her name? What is her name?
My mother's name was Winifred Gaston. You understand? Her name was Winifred Livonia Bain, though that's her mother and father, Bain. Uh-huh. She got married to my first sister, father, which was Gaston. She never married my father. I mean, never married my father. Uh-huh. And that was it, you know, so.
Well, I tell you what, I'll tell you a funny story. I have 4 kids. At one time, when they were 3 and they were young, I had them one afternoon. and I took them to this place called Chuck E. Cheese, you know, when the TV games and all the noise inside and whatever. I thought I was going to have a fun time. And we get there, we went in, and one was in a stroller. The other two were like toddlers running around. And I started realizing what a woman does. And after about an hour and a half, I said, okay, you know what? I better just get them something to eat so that they calm down. So I got them something to eat. They sat at the table for a few minutes. The next thing I know, they were flying all over the place. Now they had even more energy. And I couldn't wait to get back to the house, which leads me to my point. You know, they say a woman didn't work, she just stayed at home. But you know what? I want to rephrase that. A woman works more than any man I know outside.
That's right.
And she actually keeps her sanity. I had them for about 3 hours, and there were 3. And your mother had 9. So, you know, we want to actually had our hats off to your mom.
Yes, Lord, because she kept her sanity. She never abused or bruised any of us. Oh, she tore our butts up. But you understand that that's just our butts because we deserved it at that time. She took care of all of us. You understand? Right. And in the beginning, like my mother's first marriage was Manly. That was my oldest sister, father. You understand, Manly. So, you know, and she just took care of us, man. And she raised us well. So that when she passed away, I took care of my sisters, my younger sisters, and my son, who was only 6 months old at then. I raised them. Cook, clean, braid their hair. Because that's what my mother taught me how to do as a man, to take care of myself. So this is where my early training of learning how to take care of family came in. I was going to
say, it's like that's your kindness, your community spirit.
All came
you had
from
that
her.
Already there.
Yes, came from my mother.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I was going to say that must have been a tremendously fulfilling feeling, because taking care, especially not having your father there and that you carrying in that role for him, you know?
Well, you know, when they always call my mother the community leader, because she's always kept her doors open, you understand, and she kept our hearts open to where people in need always need, and she never closed the door to anyone, you know, she was just a magnificent woman, you understand, who did her best to raise her children and the people around her.
Yeah, well, you know what, I think this program you're going to talk about, but I think that women have this innately in their hearts as common sense guide.
Yeah.
And to me, like, it's so important what women do for society, you know, that they're such important factors. What I was going to ask you is, what was it like? Because then, I mean, you went to the Bronx.
Yep.
And now you started seeing some different aspects, right?
Yes, sir.
Different things were coming out. And, you know, so what happened there? And then what was it that led you to join the Black Spades?
Well, you know, at a young age, I moved to the Bronx. When I lived in Harlem as a young boy, it was all black. I've never heard of the different cultures, the Latino cultures. It was only white and black when I was growing up. And when we moved to the Bronx, it became like a whole new scenario, like a whole new country, because now I was introduced to the Latino brothers and sisters in the Bronx. When I lived on 142nd Street and Lenox Avenue in Harlem, it was all black owned. Black stores back then. The black community where everything was black. You understand, at that time when I was there, growing up, you understand, in the 60s, 50s and 60s, you know, and then coming to the Bronx, waking up the next day, I hear the birds singing like I'm in the country, and then also I hear this language, and I mean, it was a culture shock. This is when I learned, you understand, that there was other people in the world. Now we seen it on TV here and there, sure. but to live, we lived amongst ourselves, black community. You understand, where we own the stores, where we own the bodegos. You understand, we own the bars. All that's gone today. But when I was coming up, it was all black owned. And now today, living in the Bronx, it's a whole culture, different cultural effect. Joining the Spades is something that when I was in junior high school, I was I was drafted by the Spades. My mother was against gangs because she said that our family was the gang, but I joined them brothers because basically a lot that my mother taught me dealing with the community, helping the community. Back then we was fighting, they were fighting in the community to keep the drugs and the things out of the community and stuff like that. And that was the concept of how the Spades came about. The founders.
A very, very positive group.
Yes, a very positive, but it was a few brothers, 7 brothers that got together. You understand? And
Sure.
they were from their family roots were from the Nation of Islam.
Okay.
And the Black Panthers.
Yes.
And so living up in the Soundview section.
Very strong group.
Yeah, living up in the Soundview section of the Bronx, they came together. We were never ever meant to be a gang. The Spades was never meant to be a gang. They were supposed to be a community-based organization that came about to help fight the crime and the drugs. At that time was the heroin. You understand? Heroin was ruling everything back then. And just to help keep rid the communities of all this and protect the women and the children in the community. But as time went on and those brothers started recruiting and people started coming to them because of the name Black Spades. It was identifying with a lot of black people, even though we had a lot of different ethnic groups. The Black Spades wasn't only black, and I like people to understand we were not prejudiced.
Okay.
But we chose them. They chose the name to fit them. Okay, but we had Hispanics, whites, Jamaicans. When you grow up in them NYC projects, you're growing up with a whole mixture of people who are our friends.
That's right.
I know I come out of Mount Haven projects on 143rd and Willis. And in my building, Mount Haven, we had whites, we had Hispanics, we had Jamaicans, and they became Spades. So
it was a neighborhood group.
It was a neighborhood group, and we were all together. And the Spades was never prejudiced because we had a mixture of people. But like I said, that name stuck to a body of men, you understand, who came together to do something positive in the neighborhood. So this is how, and when in Mount Haven, years later, or a couple of years later, when I joined the Spades, it was the same thing. We was coming together, you understand, to protect our neighborhood. You know, from other people coming in, fighting in our community, from the drugs in our communities. We were coming together like a band of brothers. And all of a sudden, the Spades became one of the most phenomenal groups in the Bronx, actually throughout the 5 boroughs. We became one of the strongest and most powerful and most deadliest group because we had to fight to survive. We had to fight the Latinos. We had to fight the whites. We fought each other because there was different gangs. There was over 100 gangs that started coming together within the South Bronx alone that spread out through all the 5 boroughs. You know, and we became so popular and so powerful that the police department labeled us as one of the most deadliest gangs in the city of New York.
Wow.
During the 70s.
Well, you know what? One thing that's important to note, because I know it happens in my family, it happened in my friend's family, is that, there's conflict. Mm-hmm. Even in a family where brothers and sisters, fathers, and, cousins, uncles and aunts, there's no group that's immune to having conflict, disagreement. And there's a saying that I like that Hubbard has mentioned, that there's no hate like the hate of brothers.
Yeah.
Because there's so much loving energy that if it goes just a little bit on the way, you get this nuclear explosion in that family. And the reason I wanted to bring that out, because you're doing this great program for the community about happiness. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we forget that it's normal. Everything is not going to just be like a calm breeze in the summer, You're going to have some thunderstorms. And afterwards, the sun's going to come out and the plants will start growing if we get through the thunderstorm. Go ahead, Ty.
Well, we had a lot of thunderstorms. And I'm going to use the word you use, thunderstorms. Because when I was growing up back in the 70s, hate was real.
Right.
Hate was real.
You
Basically,
mean it was violent, you mean?
violent and real.
Yeah.
Black and white. It was real.
Okay.
Growing up in Harlem as a young man, I never seen none of this because I lived in an all-black community. Now, you see on TV where the whites, police attack the blacks and things like that. But now, and I went to a black school in Harlem. When I moved to the Bronx, my public school and junior high school was black. But when we start going to high school, this is where the Black Spades start their reputation. We started fighting in a lot of the schools today, Kennedy, Lehman, Roosevelt, quite a few of the high schools today in the Bronx were all white.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of our friends and families was going to these schools. So we would go up there and fight. Because see, a lot of people don't understand. There was a time you couldn't walk on Fordham Road. Fordham Road now, you understand, is the mecca to the Bronx.
Right.
But black folks couldn't walk. We had to fight the white gangs, the Fordham Baldies and all the other different white gangs, the Golden Guineas. We couldn't go up there at one time. And then when you started going up in the upper part of the Bronx, they didn't want us in their schools. So when the Black Spades started going up there, we wasn't going up there to change the system. We wasn't going up there thinking that we were militants. We were going up there to fight for our family and our friends who were being attacked by the white society up there. And the difference is that when we were being attacked in those schools, not only did we fight the police who were real racists at that time,
right.
Not only did we fight the white gangs who were their fathers, the police, but the grandmothers would come out and fight us as well. So we was fighting our whole family. But we went up there and we went into these schools and we started fighting and our names became known. So that this is when the police and other things started calling us revolutionaries and militants and a gang. Because we were going to these schools fighting for our families and friends, not to change a system, not to say, hey, we want to do this, but to protect our own. Because at that time, growing up, hate was real. It's still real today, but it was real because they didn't want us in these schools. And we got a lot of our reputation from fighting in these schools, protecting ourselves and our family and our friends. And that's another reason why I choose, you understand, to come to this book, The Way to Happiness, because this book here explains a lot that I'll get into as I move on as in our conversation. But that's how the Black Spades became known as one of the largest and most vicious street gangs. Because see, we fought back the police, we fought the system. We did not allow, and we had the unity within the Black Spades in the 70s was more powerful than the police department.
Right.
Because we knew each other. We slept with each other in the parks and stuff, not in the bed together, the parks and stuff together. We went to jail together. We knew everything. I knew everything about you. You knew everything about me. And my mother, which was still alive at that time, my mother became a social outlet for a lot of the different Spades mothers. Because she
was a good communicator.
Not only that, though, when the Spades came from Brooklyn, the Spades came from Manhattan, the Spades came from Queens, they would come up to my project in the South Bronx where we was, and a lot of those guys' mothers found out where they was at. And my mother traded numbers with them because my mother always wanted to make sure that I was all right. So she felt that it was in her heart to make sure that she kept tabs. She couldn't control us, but kept tabs on us, to let the other mothers know from different boroughs that their sons was all right. So they would call my mother to say, hey, did you see my son? Yeah, y'all seen your son. He's all right. He's all right. They all out there doing what they do, but he's all right. But like I said, we became we became a fierce gang because we had to fight to keep the reputation that we had because we were challenged by so many different gangs. There was over 100 gangs in the city of New York.
It's unbelievable. You know, something that's very interesting that comes out as you're relating these stories, and thank you for being open. So many people sometimes they don't want to say the truth, but you say the truth, which is fantastic, is I think one of the things we have to take a look at is, and what you're bringing out, what we do is because of our beliefs, you know, and the Black Spades had a strong belief in defending your group, the people, your friends, the families connected to that group, right? And I'm sure that these Italian groups felt the same thing.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
the Latino groups felt the same thing. And, you know, we're going to do 2 shows with Tiny because there's so much we've got to cover. But one of the things we want to come out of this portion, this segment, is we need to take a look at the commonalities. And what is in common here? If we take a look, just like there were the Black Spades, you had the Latino group, you had the Italian group, and I'm sure you had in New York City, you had a lot of groups. And each one had their own feeling about what was right. But the beautiful thing is what Tiny's mother was doing is she was making like a safe haven, a place where people could communicate. Because a lot of times people want to know, you know, where did my friend go? Where's my child, my son, my daughter? And, you know, your mother, I can see, you know, probably say something maybe that makes a lot of sense, is that she probably right now is in this group that you had spiritually and is probably smiling down that this group, TBS New Direction, is going to give this, you know, to the community, obviously to your Black community, but to all communities, and to maybe get someplace with what's going on. What do you feel about that?
Well, you know, TBS, after years went by and I left, you know, I went to prison, came home, and I did a number of different things. Then, you understand, in 2014, I decided to go back to school. I got my bachelor's degree in liberal arts. Then I decided, you know, and there was a lot going on with the kids. I decided our founders, I have to go back to them, because our founders never wanted this ever to be a gang. They wanted to just help. They wanted to do something different as Black men in their community. So what I did was I put together TBS New Direction, the Black Spades in the New Direction. And today what I do, I host public safety dinners throughout the Bronx and Manhattan. I bring together politicians who I never really cared for. I bring together the police department, who I really hated at one time, and that's a strong word, hate, but I did, but I don't no longer hate them. I bring together our clergy, I bring together our community leaders, and we sit down, former gang members, our present day gang members, where we, and I provide a dinner. See, you get a lot of people through food, and we provide a dinner for everybody, and it's free. And we don't come with no cheap dinner. We get a nice little dinner and we sit down and we have these. And I must be hosted we started in 2017. We must all the way up into the epidemic, and then we had to stop. And I only have since the COVID, moving forward today, I only had three or four dinners now. But these dinners brought people together, and it's about solutions. How do we work together? Because see, my motto is, which we wear on our t-shirts, it takes a village. And the village is just not Black folks and Hispanic folk, Black and brown people. The village is everybody. Today, I deal with the Africans, the Bangladesh, the Yemens, you understand? The Latino community, the Haitian community. I deal with a variety of people, because I say when we put on this t-shirt, and we walk around the streets now, Black Spades in a New Direction, and it takes a village, we got to be able to show that we can live up to what we say.
You are the example.
And that is
right.
A village. And the most common people in this village that I reach out to more than I've ever did in my life is the police department, because I never could stand them.
What's amazing, you know what I'm going to say to you? Because what we're going to do with this next segment, which is going to come up right after this one, we're going to go into that, which we're getting into.
Okay.
And absolutely, and this makes sense. And we'll go into why you started using this booklet, this way to happen, this booklet. And you know what? Stay tuned, because this is part one. But you have to realize where we're coming from, and realize this is a real life, a real story, not some illusion, not some dream. But what's really happening, and coming up now in step two, part two, we're going to get into how this is being done. So stay tuned. We hope you enjoyed this segment, and we will see you very soon on the next segment of A Time for Truth Show. Don't go away. You're going to be very happy you stayed.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got. But the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet